Hi everyone, it's Jennifer Fugo here from Gluten Free School, and I want to thank you for stopping by my booth. I will do my best to keep this kind of short and sweet and give you guys as much information and value as possible because I know as much as you want to get to know me, you also want to know how I can help you. And so, really quick, I'll give you a little bit of my backstory. I went gluten free in 2008 at the suggestion of a nutritionist after all of my labs and everything came back normal. Even though I was having chronic diarrhea, very bad gas, headaches since I was a teenager, had rashes on my arms and my legs. My face would break out in these scaly patches all over my cheeks. I had put on close to 20 pounds in less than a year. I was so tired all the time. And on top of it, I couldn't wake up after sleeping even up to 11 hours. And when I would wake up, I felt like I had been drugged. So that's just like some of what I was dealing with. And by taking out the things that I was sensitive to, and I came to learn that it was gluten, the casein protein that's found in all dairy, eggs, and some other foods like found in the cruciferous family and the cashew family, that my health completely turned around. And I was really able to improve my overall experience and have the energy to go out and have a social life and go ride my bike, which you can see right here. It was just one of those things that gave me my life back. I mean, ultimately, that's what this journey is about, right? Is like let's get back to normal or whatever normal might look like. And normal, that definition of normal certainly changes because even though you might get back to some sense of normalcy in your life going gluten free is your new normal. It's your new reality. And that's okay. I love being gluten free. I know that not everyone shares that experience, and that I know that most people feel that it's very difficult to live 100% gluten free. And they also have one of their gravest concerns is about not cheating anymore or stopping cheating. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that today because I think that those two pieces they're so important. It doesn't matter whether you're gluten sensitive or whether you have celiac disease. Those two pieces are critical. So, number one, let's talk about why you think that it's hard to be gluten free. And we could list out any number of reasons. You could say, well, my friends and family don't support me. It's inconvenient. There's not a lot of options around where I live. My grocery store doesn't carry gluten free food. It's expensive. I mean, I have heard every excuse, and I mean that lovingly, but they are all excuses at the end of the day. And the reason that I know this is that if you have a problem and you are committed to finding a solution, you will find a way to it. But relying on those ideas and notions, they're crutches to help keep you stuck. So let me tell you something. Most of the food in the grocery store, as long as you're not shopping down the aisles, and yes, there is some really great gluten-free food in the aisles, but if you're shopping around the perimeter of the grocery store, a lot of what's there now is naturally gluten free. So if no one has told you that, I hope that this is enlightening. Pretty much everything in the produce aisle, the fruit section, the meat department, if you eat dairy, if you eat eggs, those are typically gluten-free. Granted, if it's a food product, so if it has a label, you want to double check that. You know, if you're buying sausages that aren't made from a company that's labeling things, so they're like grocery store brand sausages, you might want to check. In fact, I would advise you to check with the people behind the scenes, the meat department, to make sure that there was no flour or any spices or anything that were added to those that could have gluten in them. But aside from that, fish, seafood, it's all gluten free. Olive oil, nuts, seeds. Now, anything in a bag, so like grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, those do need to be marked gluten free. And you might think that's silly because there shouldn't naturally be gluten free in those things and they should be fine. But you don't know how they're handled. And there was a study done some time ago that they looked at grains that should be gluten-free, that are naturally gluten-free, like rice and quinoa and such, and they tested them and found that a large percentage of them were actually contaminated with gluten. So yes, as much as people say gluten-free water, and they make all these jokes about, well, lead is gluten free. You know, I've heard all these things, I've seen all those memes online, but at the end of the day, you know, I don't know about the water piece of it. I don't necessarily need my bottled water, if I ever buy any, to be labeled gluten free. But I do want any food products that are in bags to be marked gluten free. And if you don't know this, you cannot shop at the bulk food aisle. I know some of us are trying to save money and we see how much less expensive it is. And if you say go into Whole Foods or your local grocery store and they have this amazing bulk food section, you cannot shop there unless that entire section is labeled certified gluten free. You cannot shop there. That is not safe. You can't rinse off the gluten. You don't know that it's gone. And a lot of that stuff, and people put those spoons back wherever they feel like it. So you don't know what was in that bin before you walked up to it. And you don't know you don't know if the wheat has slowly, the flour has slowly sifted down through the cracks, because maybe there's flour up top and there's rice down on the bottom. Any number of things. So those are a few very common things, but I would just tell you to focus your food around healthy food that happens to be gluten-free. And so one of the things I want to share with you is that you might think like, well, maybe my parents were like these crunchy granola people and they ate healthy. My family is Italian. They were all about pasta and bread. I grew up eating pasta and bread. And in fact, most of my diet pre-going gluten-free, before I started to realize that I should probably eat more fruit and vegetables, was pasta, bread, grilled cheese sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly, mac and cheese, honey bunches of oats. I mean, I ate a pretty normal, not very healthy, convenient diet, like pizza. And so I had to make the switch. So how I eat now is a lot different than how I ate then, but I didn't do it overnight. And I do think that by focusing on food that happens to be gluten-free, you remove the need to feel like something's missing. Because I think that's one of the biggest complaints about gluten-free products is oftentimes they don't have the same texture. You know, people complain about gluten-free bread all the time. It doesn't have the same texture. You have to toast it. It doesn't taste as good. It doesn't hold up, blah, 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 all these reasons. I don't eat gluten-free bread. If you guys do, that's great. It's something I very rarely buy and very rarely eat. I got away from it because it was terrible when I went gluten-free in 2008. So what I did, which was really helpful, was taking a look at more traditional Italian cookbooks. And I came to realize that there is a lot in Italian cuisine that's actually gluten-free. A lot of dishes are. And if you go and travel to Italy, believe it or not, it's a very gluten-free friendly country. They're very aware of celiac disease, and they do a great job at serving our community. So there are plenty of options at this point to be able to make that transition. If you're new to being gluten-free, like 100% new, it's like your first few months, if you need like all the gluten-free products to just like swap them out, gluten for gluten-free, to get you on the gluten-free wagon, that's cool. But I would say at month 3, 4, you need to start transitioning and adding in more real food that are not in boxes and bags and packaging. Things that you find in the produce aisle that you're cooking yourself. You can take cooking classes. There's any number of things that you can do in order to lead this lifestyle. So one of the greatest things that I did was that I would allow myself every week to buy a brand new spice. And I would just go on Google and I would look up what to do with it. It is amazing. There's so much information on Google. And, you know, there's also a lot of websites. Believe it or not, Martha Stewart has some great information on her website about how to prep food, how to use spices. There's The Kitchen is another, thekitchen.com, and I think it's kitchen.com is a great website to look up how to cook very basic things, and many of them are gluten-free, which is great. And then at my website, Gluten Free School, we've got amazing recipes that are simple, that are not complicated, that don't have 20 ingredients. It's mostly simple things that you can make pretty quickly, or like crock pot recipes. There are some desserts that are healthier and don't have refined flours or sugars in them. So we're constantly trying to give you guys as much great content as possible, and then simultaneously provide you with information that will help to inform and empower you to take better care of your health, and to also seek that piece of bringing your practitioners, all of them, to the table, that conversation that you can have at a metaphorical table, of course, where you are at the head of it. You are at the helm, because ultimately you've got to be an advocate for your health, for your lifestyle, whether it's social, friends and family, it's at home, it's at the doctor's, if you're hospitalized, you always have to advocate for yourself. And it's great if you can have somebody advocate for you as well, but you always need to be an advocate for yourself. And when you get comfortable with that, and you know how to ask the right questions, and you know how to have the conversations without instigating a fight, or people picking on you and making you feel bad, there's a really amazing switch that can happen. And that's what I see happen in clients and those that are, parts of my members only community and whatnot. They're really experiencing these incredible shifts, no matter where they began in their journey and where our paths crossed. Now they're in a much different state. And I'm really glad that I'm able to provide them with those opportunities to be able to experience a happier, easier life, because it's ultimately the point. I mean, we want to be as normal as possible. And, gluten-free is going to be your normal. Maybe your normal is going to look much different than my normal. My normal is gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free, etc. But whatever your normal looks like, it becomes less stressful and easier. And you know what? You just become satisfied. You feel satisfied with it. And last piece I want to share with you, as I said, is this idea of how do you get to 100% compliance and stop cheating. And this is a long conversation, but one tip that I can share with you is that you really need to ask yourself what's more important, you or that momentary enjoyment of food. Now, I was a pasta and bread addict, and I'm not even like overblowing that. If I was at a restaurant, there was a basket of bread, I would eat the whole thing, and I'd ask for seconds, and I'd eat the whole thing. I'd ask for thirds. I would eat more bread than anyone else at that table. Then I would finish off an entire, probably, a lot of restaurants give you like a half a pound of pasta almost. I'd finish off the whole thing. I was very much addicted to pasta and carbs, bread, etc. So for me, this has been a huge shift. And I had to ask myself what was more important, feeling well and taking care of me so that I could have a happy life, so that I could have a normal life, so that I could go on trips, so that and travel without being afraid that I was going to get so sick to my stomach that I couldn't find a bathroom, that I wasn't going to continue to develop more and more health problems, or that they were going to continue, that I would be able to do all the things that I wanted to do in my life, that I wanted to feel happy, that I didn't want to feel shame or afraid that people were going to find out that I was cheating all the time. I mean, there's a lot of pressure that goes along with the idea that, or with the actuality of cheating on your gluten-free diet. That goes far beyond your health, the implications of what happens when family and friends see you doing that. It becomes more difficult and more challenging for them to support you because they realize you're not committed to it. So how can you get upset with them for not supporting you when you're not even 100% on board? So the question is, okay, well, how do we make that switch? How do we flip that? And one of the things that had to happen was I had to have a little powwow or come to Jesus talk with my husband. And we talked about why I was doing all of this, like why I'd spent so much money, and we were spending more money on food, because obviously, gluten-free diet is about 2 to 3 times more expensive than a normal standard American diet. And why was I doing this? And what did I need from him in order to get on, so that we would both be on the same page about this? Because he was concerned for me and he wanted to know how to best support me, but he found it to be difficult to support me when he would watch me cheat or make an excuse for why it was okay that I taste this pasta dish that was not made with gluten-free pasta, or these cookies that were not made with, gluten-free flour. And I had to realize that I was addicted to the taste, to the memories, to the social normalcy of feeling like I was still allowed to indulge in that former life. And I realized in that moment that I had to make a choice. I had to choose me because ultimately I'm more important. And I can tell you right now, you are more important than your indulgences, your gluten indulgences. You are much more important. And if you don't allow yourself to be treated in the best possible way, you can't expect others to act accordingly. And I can tell you now, nobody in my life, none of my friends, not even my family, nobody makes comments about how I should just give it a try. I should just cheat on this. Oh, this is worth it. Nope. Nobody says anything negative. If anybody that I happen to come across makes a joke about my lifestyle or whatever, I'm like, yeah, well, I really like not having chronic diarrhea and running to the bathroom 10 times in the middle of dinner. So, I'm at a point where I can laugh at it. And I know that it took time, but having that conversation and having my husband help hold me accountable was really helpful. And that to me is one of the hardest pieces of this whole going gluten-free thing is the first 2 to 3 years are really difficult, especially if, I don't know, people who are gluten sensitive who say they don't have a diagnosis of celiac disease because they don't have that piece of paper saying you're celiac. They somehow can reason that it's okay, they don't need to be gluten-free the entire time, which, by the way, is not true, just so you know. And then people who are celiac who have the diagnosis will say, well, I just want to feel normal, or oh, it's inconvenient, or oh, it's too hard, or oh, I didn't know what to eat, or oh, I didn't plan. I mean, I have worked with clients for a long time. I've heard all the reasonings, which ultimately boil down to excuses, because when you plan, when you really set yourself up for success, those things don't happen. There are always options to you, but you have to get yourself in a situation and put yourself in a situation, not just with what's in your home, but understanding how to dine out, how to shop at the grocery store, how to talk to your friends and family, how to deal with social situations, how to deal with going to parties where there is going to be food, how to deal with accepting and declining food gifts that may not be safe or are definitely not safe. So there's so many things here. And then also the other piece of it too is understanding the health ramifications of not staying gluten-free, because it's huge. It is huge. So that is one that I hope that that's one piece of, that will hopefully help some of you realize that you are more important than having some, homemade fresh semolina pasta. You're more important than eating that cookie. You're more important than that. And your health is worth it. I can tell you that through and through. If you can just have that conversation with yourself, and if it takes you time for that to sink in, just know that the more you are committed to your lifestyle, the more that people around you, especially as you learn how to talk to them to garner their support, it is amazing what will happen. So that is one of the biggest boundaries and challenges, or basically those two components. And I hope that that is something that will be helpful for you. As far as like my philosophy on eating gluten-free, I would say that I tend to eat in a way, and I advise clients to eat in a way that is healthy, that happens to be gluten-free. That way you're not missing gluten. Your guests who come over aren't missing gluten because it was never meant to be there in the first place. And learning how to minimize the amount of refined gluten-free flour. I don't even care if it says whole wheat, whole brown rice. That's what I meant to say. Brown rice pasta. That's still refined. People are like, oh, I don't want white rice pasta. I want brown rice pasta. Still refined. You're really not, it's so minimal, like you're still having a refined gluten-free flour, So that's the thing. Like, you have to learn that a lot of food marketing as well is geared toward getting you to buy the products, not necessarily to help you with your health. And you always want to look for a gluten-free label. Certified gluten-free, is great, and that's amazing, and that's the best way to look for products that are safe for you to eat, but ultimately you do at a minimum need to look for that gluten-free label and start learning what it means to really live a healthy gluten-free lifestyle. So I invite you to come over to check out Gluten Free School. I have a podcast, I've got great researched articles, I've got tons of recipes, and I know that at the end of the day, you're going to find amazing content and help with everything that I have to offer. So come and check it out. And I also have some great free gifts as well that you can download. I've got a simple 7-day gluten-free meal plan, as well as a kitchen clean out guide. So I look forward to talking to you soon. Please come check out my newsletter list as well. I do great weekly newsletters, and I've got a great community online. So please come and join me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here at the Gluten Away Gluten Free Expo.